We loaned it's a mailbox that was painted, that's about a block. Joel indicated that it's about a block from where they live on Sierra Madre, and I'm not sure what the cross street was, but it's a beautiful landscape of a mailbox with lots of floral and I should have pictures back here. It's I can't describe it very well, but I started buying art in 1980, approximately, and one of my clients was the brother of Glenna Pickford, and he says, "You need to meet my sister, and I will arrange it." And that was the start of the first watercolor that I purchased, and it was one of the Kearney Mansion. And it's a beautiful, fantastic watercolor. And from then on, I was buying them almost all the time, about every 4 or 5 years.
Now that's his painting.
Right.
My first one, I didn't know Bill then. There was an exhibition in Carmel, and I went to Carmel often. My parents had lived there, and I had other friends there. And so there was an exhibition, and there was this darling painting of, looks like out towards Piedra, with a cherry frame, cherry wood frame, already framed, and I thought, oh, I have to have that. And then it went from there. So I didn't buy that many more, but I commissioned him to do one. And this is again before I knew Bill. I taught dance at City College, Fresno City College, and I decided, somehow, I knew Joel. He was doing our dance photography for our publicity. And his brother showed up, the musician, Lauren. Somehow or other, we all got the idea that I would do a dance about Roland Pickford's art. And Joel said, oh, I'll lend you some of the slides, because he was doing lectures in connection with the book California Light and with doing the film. And his brother said, oh yeah, I used to do music for Portable Dance Troupe. And so it all fell together, and I had a Pickford of people on the Sunday matinee. And the costumes by Deborah Shapazian Irwin, they brought out the colors in one of the paintings, and we had a rear screen projection show. It was a big set. So it was really exciting to do that. And somehow or other, I think I met Bill. Oh, yes. Glenna Pickford had said, oh, this was at a reception when Joel's video, California Light,
Presentation at the
Yeah.
Fresno Arts Center.
Yes, that's right.
And I was working that night because it was
And I
tax
was too,
season.
because it was dance
And
season.
I had to end a meeting real early that night at 7:30 because I was supposed to be at the Art Center at 7. So I rushed there, and I got there about 8 o'clock that night. It was middle of March
Yeah.
in 2000.
And I'd already seen the film because I was hanging around with Joel when he was editing it. So anyway, Glenna says, oh, you two should meet. And I guess we both cleaned up pretty nice, because I'd come from, dance studio.
I was wearing a suit.
Yeah, I was
and,
wearing a
very,
suit.
Very businesslike. Glenna drags Janice reluctantly over to her. You need to meet this guy. And she's, oh, really?
I didn't do that. Anyway, I just made sure that I went over to Glenna's and Roland's house in a couple weeks before the dance concert and said, could I use your mailing list, and maybe some of the people that you mail out to about the California Light presentation would like the dance concert, and I'll write a little note on each one.
I was there. I attended. I followed up on that little subtle lead, and I was there that evening, and I was on my way. Tax season had ended, and I was on my way to Lake Tahoe, so I came by and saw the show, and then the next day I was off. Janice and I didn't connect until sometime
The next year.
Early the next year. And Joel coordinated that. Joel called me in December of that year, and I said, is Janice dating anyone now? And he says, I think she's just broke up. And I says, well, that's great. Can you put in a good word for me? And so Glenna is responsible for us getting together and getting married.
Well, you'd bought a bunch for your office.
I did.
And I had had some of my dancers go out and watch while I was in the process of choreographing, and spend a Saturday for a few hours while we met up with him at one of the last remaining orchards in Fresno, Chestnut and Teague, and just so that the dancers could learn about part of the process, and I thought that was important. So anyway.
So between the two of us, we counted up all of our Rollin Pickford paintings, watercolors, and they totaled 29. I think it's the one we got as a wedding gift.
Yep,
from
it
Glenna.
is. How would you guess? That was mine too. Well, yeah, it was special to get a wedding gift from them. And then the one we picked, oh, I was so afraid. I thought, I wanted it so badly out of the choices she gave us. And because it was the picture it was the exact place where my parents walked every day for about 9 years after my dad retired, up in the Carmel area with Point Lobos in the background. And fortunately, Bill liked that one too. So,
Absolutely.
And it is our favorite.
Absolutely. I met Rollin through the meeting that Jim Pipes had arranged to meet Glenna, and Rollin was there that day, but he painted almost every day. So it was very unusual for him to be there, but he was there that day, and Glenna was the marketing specialist for the Pickford Pictures, and she showed off all of she asked what your interest, her style was so easy. She would ask you what you liked, and then she would dig through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of watercolors and find one she thought that you would like. Once she got to know your taste, then she would send you off with a portfolio to your home where they were going, or the office where they were going, and you picked among 10 say in the portfolio, and you'd come back, and Glenna had the Glenna Pickford easy payment plan.
Yes.
So you could write a check every month, and they were happy, and we were happy.
Yeah.
So that's how we acquired all these beautiful works of art.
And I met Rollin only through Joel, because somehow or other I met Joel years before when I first came to Fresno for my job at City College. And then I was part of the Stanford Alumni Club, and they had a special, Joel gave a lecture when there was a commemorative exhibit of Rollin's paintings at the Fresno Art Museum. So I went to see that, and then we went out for coffee afterwards and yacked and yacked and yacked, and by the end of the evening it was, will you do our dance photos for us, Joel? So I met Rollin later on in the process, just knowing Joel.
It's a masterpiece. Every one of them is a masterpiece. They convey the beauty of the valley. His specialty was orchards and fields and nature, and his watercolors just jump out at you and tell you his story. And his other favorite watercolors were at the coast. Monterey pine trees. We have a number of Monterey pine trees that are just absolutely spectacular, and the coast properties, sites.
And I like them for their historic significance because, well, those paintings were, first one, Dakota and something, Shields? No, Dakota and Blackstone, well, wherever. It was all countryside. And many of the agricultural spots in the orchards and other things that were just countryside when he was painting, they're full of houses, they're full of stores. I don't know what people are going to eat, but I think historically it's really special to have those. And also, I like the different styles he's gone through. Not that we own something from each period, but he painted over so many years that, and he experimented, and the people he knew, like a neighbor for a while in the Monterey area, Carmel area, was from China or Japan or something. So he experimented with a lot of things. He was a fellow artist, and he's been influenced by different things and different movements, and and then when you look at it, they're wonderful to have. They're wonderful to live with. And when you know the artist, then they're really special.
Images of the valley as it was when he was growing up and painting in his early years. In fact, one of the people he used to paint with was Tom Valiant, and I got to know Tom Valiant Jr., his son, and his family, Tom Valiant Jr.'s family, is the one that framed my artwork. So they also were a client, and Rollin and Tom Valiant Sr. painted together back in the 40s, and so they saw the valley when it was very different than what you see today. So those paintings are representations of what it was that will never be again. So in fact, one of my early paintings that I acquired was Moss Landing, and it was done in the 60s, and it's a beautiful seascape with the Moss Landing in the background, and it's priceless. Well, I think we're blessed to have met the Pickford family. They're delightful people. Joel's just as brilliant as his father was. He has a different medium that he uses, and we're also blessed to have the Pickfords have introduced us to each other, and it was a wonderful collaboration all the way around. I think we're honored to have one of the paintings that we selected as our favorites, that Joel selected as something that was a family favorite. One thing that brings to mind is Glenna would always say, "This is one of my favorite paintings. I hate to part with it, but we are in the business of selling watercolors." So I knew they were her treasures as well as our treasures.